Welcome, Meredith. Thank you very much for accepting the invitation.
It's my pleasure.
And welcome everyone to another edition of MOYATalks. We start our Woman History Month series today with Mrs. Meredith Jolivert, General Counsel and Vice President at Politico.com. Mrs. Jolivert is a seasoned lawyer with over 15 years of experience and extensive background in managing corporate, regulatory, and legal risk for companies and clients. She is a Georgetown University Law Center graduate, and she's also active in numerous charitable and membership organizations, including service at the board of Energy Bar Association and the executive committee of the Washington, D.C. chapter of Jack and Jill of America. Meredith, welcome.
Thank you. I'm thrilled to be here.
Meredith, let's start. Why law school?
So I actually decided I wanted to be a lawyer at 10. So law school is a necessary evil if you want to actually practice law. So I had no doubt that's what I was going to do. I didn't go straight after college, though. I wasn't really ready. I graduated college early and I went to grad school instead. And then I took 3 years off and then I went to law school. So it was a bit of a winding path to get there.
But that bears the question, how does a 10-year-old decide they want to be a lawyer?
The same way a 10-year-old decides anything else. I think the parents in the room understand that. There are all kinds of decisions that are made with an incredible amount of passion at 1, at 2, at 3, at 10. And I'm probably one of the few people that decided to do something at 10 that I actually did. But nonetheless, I know kids right now that are certain they're going to be police officers or the president, right? And I think it's great to encourage kids to do that. My parents encouraged me. So, it happened. So that's a pretty cool thing.
And is it what you expected?
No. Not at all. People are often surprised. I don't walk into the room and talk about being a lawyer. So people that know me in social settings or outside of the professional network are often surprised. My husband is not a lawyer. I've never actually dated a lawyer, so I don't lead with that. I think that the education itself was transformational for me. It helped me think in a different way, in a much more linear and clear way, helped me articulate myself better and have more control over how to arrive at an outcome and a reasoned outcome, like, whenever I'm dealing with an issue that I have to kind of work through. So it was really, really important. I think it was a great thing to do. I'm glad I did it. My career's been a little bit windy too, but it's all working out.
It's interesting you mentioned it because in other countries, law is a degree itself.
Yes.
You major in law.
Right.
Whereas in the States, you can major in anything you want and then you become a lawyer, which gives lawyers a different background.
That's right. Yeah, it's very different. I actually worked when I was in graduate school, I worked full time and I went to school at night. And I worked in the Masters of Law department at American University. And so there were a lot of lawyers from other countries that had to come and do a 2-year degree in order to take the New York bar and be admitted to practice law here. So it really is a very different process, different educational process. And then the transition from being a lawyer in another country to being a lawyer here is one that is not always easy, and it's often expensive. So it was great to meet so many people from different countries and with different backgrounds and to learn more about the practice of law in other countries as well. But it's just not an easy road, I would say.
Since 2017, women have slowly outnumbered men in law school enrollment and graduation. I found some interesting stats about that. Yet, women are still underrepresented and make only around 20% of the top-ranked firms, top-ranked in law firms. What are the outlooks and possible paths of improvement, in your opinion?
So I think sponsorship is critical anywhere a person is, whether that person is a man or a woman. Sponsorship is really the key to upward mobility in any organization. I think I started my practice at a law firm and practiced in private practice for several years before I went in-house. And the people that I know that have remained in private practice did have very clear support. And so I think support is really a foundational element of success for women, especially. I started my practice as a single person. While I was in private practice, I got married and I had 2 kids. And my life changed pretty substantially. I was in an incredibly supportive practice, and that made all the difference. I still ultimately decided it was time to move in-house, and it was time to learn how to practice differently. But I do know a lot of women that have remained in private practice and have been successful there. So I think no matter what, support's a key element, whether you're in-house or outside counsel, and support through all of the stages of your life and as your life evolves. Whether you have children, whether you don't, whether you have parents, right? We all have whole lives that affect our ability to show up at work, and we need to have support throughout the various seasons we have.
If confirmed, Ketanji Brown Jackson will become the first Black woman judge of the Supreme Court. What does this milestone represent for law student and young women?
So, I mean, the first thing I'll say is what took so long, right? I think it is always exciting and disheartening that we still have these firsts right now at this point, right? Politico is a nonpartisan organization, and so I can't really speak about like political appointments or things like that specifically, but I can just say broadly, representation matters. Seeing yourself matters, right? And so I think when I talked at the beginning of this about kids that have ideas and have dreams and decide at 10 to be lawyers, right? We're going to have, little kids that decide to be Supreme Court justices, and they'll have someone that they can look at that looks like them. And I think that's a great thing.
The Lancet recently published a study that provides data on the pandemics, right? Historical data. And now we know that disproportionately the pandemic affected women, especially at work, proving that with a shock like this, we are still far away from resilient gender equality.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned support before. How can companies build or help build this risk-ready support system that empower women?
So I think it is, first, not a one-size-fits-all approach, right? I think, as I said, right, not all women have children. Not all, we can't think about women as a monolith any more than we can think about any other group as a monolith. And so people need different things, and they need different things at different points in their lives. So if you want an employee to stay for a long period of time, right, you want to think about their needs at various stages, because having really great parental leave, for instance, just may not be that helpful to the person who is at home caring for an elderly parent, right? So what you want to do is speak to your employee base, understand what their needs are. I will say this, I live in DC. I live in I say tiny house. My husband calls it a modest house. We can disagree about that. There were 4 of us at home, distance learning, right? I have 2 whole teenagers, 13 and 15, that are taller than I am. They take up a lot of space. My 13-year-old had a headset. I'm old, so I'm going to say look like Janet Jackson, right? She was serious. Like we shared an office. I would come in the morning. She's like, how many calls do you have? And I thought to myself, I'm paying for you to be on this call, and I'm getting paid to be on the calls that I'm on. And yet I was at the kitchen table more often than not, right? So it was about, right, grace. It was about, you hear my Cocker Spaniel barking in the background and ignore it. because a lot of times when I'm on calls, I'm the one talking, right? I'm back in the office now. Not everyone else is. We had a voluntary return to office, a kickoff on Tuesday. We have a hybrid model. If people are not comfortable at this point coming back, they haven't. So I think you really do have to scale your policies and think about your workforce and try to meet people where they are when you can. But work still has to happen. And so I think there does have to be a real balance, because you have to look at the impact to teams, right? Extending grace in one place may put pressure in another. So it's important to understand the overall balance there.
I think we're familiar with that.
I'm sure.
You have a bunch of designers here, so you have ideas to improve houses in that regard. Go ahead.
If I had an idea, it was really not perfect, I have to say. As I said, I spent a lot of time at the kitchen table.
Politico is one of the most influential media outlets out there. And you mentioned it's nonpartisan and creates opinion. And it's constantly under scrutiny and controversy due to the very nature of the reporting they do. What are the challenges of your role, and how do you navigate them?
I would say the press of time, right? Breaking news happens quickly. And so the work that I do here often has time pressures that didn't exist in some of my prior roles. So I think time is really something that I'm very focused on now. I would also say the breadth of the role. So as general counsel, I cover the entire legal footprint of the company. That includes media-related things like litigation around defamation claims and things like that, all the way to contracts for our physical space, employment agreements and things like that, right? So it really runs the whole gamut. And so I think also there are challenges and opportunities to think as expansively as possible, to be open and to learn as much as I can from the people who I'm supporting, right? The legal role is a support service to the organization. So it's important that I understand who my business partners are. And that takes time, right? And if you're in a time pressured situation, then getting up to speed and really understanding what the issues are so that I can provide the right guidance can be a challenge, for sure.
Do you have a relation with your desk in Europe?
Yes, absolutely. Actually, my counterpart, my legal counterpart in Europe, and I talk weekly. So yeah, absolutely. We have there are 3 organizations. Protocol is our sister organization. It's a tech news organization, and I am in touch with everyone. So
back in October last year, Politico was acquired by Axel Springer SE for a reported $1 billion. How does the future look for Politico in the next 5 years?
The future is bright. Axel Springer has been fantastic. For those that don't know, it's a big German media house, an incredibly good reputation, and it's wonderful. The resources that we have had, that we have come to experience through the acquisition have been wonderful, and all of the touches so far have been great as well. I think there is again, a ramping up and a getting to know one another. And then I expect an expansion of our footprint and our impact. I think the need for nonpartisan reporting is greater now than it ever has been. And so I think Axel Springer understands that and is committed to that. We are, a digital media company, and I think that translates well into an incredibly broad space. So the future's bright. I think there's a lot more to come.
And press independence is very important right now.
Absolutely. Besides
your work at Politico, you are part of the executive committee of the Washington, D.C. chapter of Jack and Jill of America.
Yes.
To be honest, before the interview, I had no idea what this was. But I did
There's
some
not many
research
people
for
like-
this,
Yeah.
and I found it really nice.
Yes, it is. Jack and Jill of America is the oldest African American mothers and children's organization in the country. I am a member of the Washington, D.C. chapter. We just celebrated our 80th anniversary. I was an officer in the chapter 2 years ago, responsible for programming. Right now, I'm the chair of the Gavel Club, which is the sort of junior version of Toastmasters. And my kids are miserable, but they are learning how to speak, right? And public speaking is critically important, and giving our kids an opportunity to build that muscle at an early age and in a supportive environment is incredibly important. So that's what I do there. I think it's great. It's a huge resource of moms, and we pour into our kids and into kids in the community, in the Washington, D.C. community. And there are chapters across the country, so we aren't the only ones.
I like that. I like the idea of teaching young kids how to speak publicly. I was a teacher for many years.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I love working with kids. And you face these introverts,
right,
who are actually very smart, but they cannot express their ideas, and they grow up with this more, less likely to speak out.
Absolutely. Absolutely. My 15-year-old is an introvert, so she has really had an evolution. 3 years in the organization. She's actually right now the vice president of public relations. The reason is because she can just do the Instagram presence, the IT presence. She's really interested in art, and so she does all of the publicity, but she is still not interested in really talking to anyone to publicize anything. So that continues to be an opportunity and challenge.
Oh, but it's just finding a way of expressing, right? So
yes, absolutely.
That's important. Besides working on this, you have a wealth of experience in the energy sector, and you're a member of the Energy Bar Association.
Yes.
Could you tell the audience what does the EBA do, and what kind of network and training provides?
So the Energy Bar Association is a voluntary association of energy attorneys and professionals. The goal really is to just advance the profession generally. They cover all facets of energy, so electricity, gas, renewables. I've been a member of the Energy Bar Association for 20 years, easily. I was on the board for years. I was on the board up until May of, I think, 2020. I have to say, pandemic time has made things kind of fuzzy, but I was on the board for 3 years, and I've been an active member for years. It is an organization that creates opportunities for education, for networking, for enrichment. There are regional chapters so that wherever you are in the country, you can connect with other energy professionals and learn about things that are relevant to your area, right? You think about someplace like Texas that has its own grid. That's particularly important. And there's, we've had all kinds of energy issues that are sometimes geographically sensitive or have a heightened sensitivity. And so having people on the ground that know what's happening from a variety of like governmental, commercial perspectives is really important. And the Energy Bar is an organization that creates the platform for all of those really important discussions.
Wide network.
Yeah.
Meredith, I'm going to open the floor.
Sure.
See if the staff have any questions. If they don't, I have a couple of questions for you.
Okay.
So please, people, go ahead.
I'd like to start by saying this is a very amazing conversation, and thank you for having the time to talk to us. Like from the fact that you have so many things that's going on aside from the work that you do, the extra activities that you do. And there's so many questions, like so many topics that you went, like private life, dealing with family, Politico, and I don't know which one I can ask, but maybe the first would be this, the fact that you have like these all amazing activities that you do. How can you balance between
Sure.
being a mom and a family member? Because I always wanted to understand how as a new mom, how to balance my life right now. I also like to not just be an architect, but also volunteer in other stuff, and I'm doing that. I used to do that, but right now I don't know how to balance between the two.
So you should know that I think about life like in seasons, right? So I haven't always been this involved in all of those activities. And I have had to engage and then step back at various times because of what was happening. So when I joined the Energy Bar, when I was single, right? Before I ever had kids, I was heavily involved in the Energy Law Journal then. That is one of the publications of the Energy Bar. I was the administrative editor. So I really worked hard to create a reputation and network at that time. Once I had kids, I had to pare back a bit, right? I think priorities are going to grow and ebb and flow depending on what's happening in your life. Teenagers don't require nearly the same amount of, I would say, regular and consistent touch points, right?
They don't even want it.
Yeah, I mean, without a doubt, I am incredibly present. My daughter took the PSAT yesterday. She got home from school and I wasn't there. I was still at my desk. And she asked to FaceTime because, she wanted to tell me all about it. And I did. And we had a great conversation, right? So I'm still there, but they don't need they don't need me to take a shower. They don't need me, they don't go to the doctor as often, right? There are all kinds of things that happen when your children are small that occupy space in your life. And so I think it's important to give yourself grace at whatever stage you're in and know that all of the things that you liked will still be there when you have time to return to them. You would be surprised, right? Even with my career, right? It wasn't a complete, it wasn't steps, right? There were all kinds of zigzags that happened. And I continued to work, but I worked part-time. I worked, different hours. I took salary reductions at different times so that I could contribute to my family and be there the way that I needed to. There were other times where I was seeing the kids on FaceTime. It has all been really varied over time. And I think you just have to give yourself grace and know that this stage seems like it's going to last forever, but blink and they will be taller than you are. And sassy sometimes. Mine are.
Thank you. I would like to ask you so many other questions, but I don't want to be selfish and leave it for the others.
No worries.
So the others, do you have any questions? Nuri is going to be our guest next week, actually, Meredith. She's also amazing.
Oh, fantastic. This
Right,
is such an interesting series. I think it's wonderful that you do this.
Yeah, we're very happy about it. I'm always excited to see the new guest.
That's fantastic.
My favorite part of the week, too. So, Meredith, I'm an avid reader of Politico. I'm subscribed to Politico Money. I read the European and the US edition. So when Sandy suggested to contact you, I was really excited. I wanted to ask you a little bit more about how you manage to keep nonpartisan and independent, especially under money pressures.
Sure. It's our mission. It's a core belief and really the North Star. I think it's important to focus on that. And I think that we see how critically important it is now. And so I think when you are constantly reminded, in how the world is evolving, how that need for balance is a key driver to an informed body, then you have greater ability to commit to it, right? I think we have all seen over the past decade how filtered communication can be detrimental. And so I do think that it is continues to be incredibly important. I was a Politico reader before I joined the organization. I joined in November of 2020, but have subscribed to Politico for years and really looked to Politico at various inflection points in our history. When I think about elections, when I think, there have been points where I've literally been, refresh on the page to get information. And so it is exciting to be part of the organization now. But because I relied on it for so long, and because I relied on that objectivity, it's easy to continue to be committed there.
Meredith, we really appreciate your time.
It's my pleasure.
It's been enlightening talking to you.
Fantastic.
And I hope we can meet again.
Likewise. I wish you all well. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for
Thank you
coming.
so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank
You're welcome.
You people.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.